Hello folks, so in this video what I want to really discuss is the latter half of the segment where I was having a conversation with Tim Passmore, Suffolks Police and Crime Commissioner. Now, in the first part of the video, the longer video which is on YouTube already, is we were talking broadly about pet theft in general, and I synthesized the legality element into article which is already shared, and I will attach that in the link on here as well, so that everyone can understand where we need to campaign. But really what I want to highlight in this video is what we can all do to better protect our four-legged friends and effectively make sure that we are taking all steps that are reasonably practical to keep ourselves and them safe from gangs who are committing the terrible, horrendous crime, and really recognizing where we can effectively change habits or change behaviors that may potentially give these criminals who are committing this crime an opportunity to exploit often very enthusiastic pet owners who just may not have the right information to hand. So to start off with, it has to come down to the point of where you get your animal from. So I will always be an advocate of rescue first, but if you are going down the route of finding a breeder, please do find a responsible breeder. Now, my recommendation for this would be to start, especially if you're looking for general pets, the Kennel Club is probably the best breeding platform to look at. So looking at the breed registration groups which are affiliated on the Kennel Club website, and then looking at the assured breeders, which are more specialist breeders or more experienced breeders within that breed group. Now, all of these breeders will be affiliated to a particular group as well as they being affiliated to the Kennel Club, and they'll have a breeder coordinator or puppy coordinator who'll be able to put you on a waiting list and make sure that you get a puppy when it becomes available and notifies you when that dog becomes available. And the important thing here is it's very much a conversation with the puppy coordinator or breeder coordinator, because these are independent from the Kennel Club, I should clarify. They're more affiliated with the group. They know the breed, they will ask you a few questions, but generally speaking, they will make sure that you're put in touch with the right breeder, and they will act as very much a supportive voice for you in your journey to acquiring potentially your first dog, or even if you're an experienced owner, your subsequent dogs. Now, rescue centres, they will have adoption coordinators, which are very similar to this, where they will take your information, find out a bit more about your lifestyle, because different than a breeder, where you should have done your research before to identify what breed you're interested in. The adoption coordinators will be trying to find out about your lifestyle and identify what dog is suitable for you, whether it's puppy, an adult dog, a senior dog, all of which, to vast majority of the people, they are chosen for, and it's very much establishing that relationship and that bond between individuals who will fit each other. The dog suits the individual, the couple, the family, and the family suits the dog. And it's very much mirroring this up, because if it mirrors it up, it's more successful early relationship, and that foundation starts off where you can effectively be in a better position with that dog. Now, a lot of breeders and adoption centres, rescue centres, they do take time to go through the correct due diligence. They do checks on yourself. They make sure that you're the right fit for the dogs, and you want them to do this. The reason you need them to do this is the trust that you're establishing for them is that they know that you're going to be that good home for them, and as the good home for the dogs or kittens or other forms of pets. But you need them to do this, and you want them to do this, because that way they make sure that some of these dogs are not going on to someone who might have more ill will towards the animal, and as a result have plans that are less than honest about what they want to do with the dogs and might harm the welfare of dogs. And they are trying to safeguard those animals, whether that be a rescue centre or a breeder. They don't want the animals to be in an environment where they're going to suffer. They want to make sure that those animals are going to loving homes, and that those animals which are going to loving homes are going to be happy in those homes and have a long, fulfilled life. And generally speaking, the thing that gives you an idea that both of these are legitimate practices is normally you'll be presented with some form of contract. Now, all different groups will have some form of contract, whether it be rescue centres, both national and international rescue centres, whether it be breeders, whether that be the kennel club or the working breed registers. They will have some form of contract for you to fill in for your dog, for your cat, for your rabbit. The importance of this is to really make sure that you know what you're taking on in terms of a responsibility with that dog, with that cat, with the rabbit, and equally that you know what the breeders or the rescue centre's responsibility is to you. The vast majority of these contracts will have clauses in them where the breeder and the rescue centre will take the animal back off you if there's found to be the relationship hasn't formed and something may have gone wrong, or circumstances may have changed. And this is all something that should be put in place to safeguard the animal and safeguard you. Now, the concerning area really is often when people look at getting a breed, getting a dog, getting any other animal, is they very much look at price as a recommendation that effectively the animal is from a legitimate source. Now, the breeder scammers, the ones who are faking being the legitimate businesses, there are all legitimate rescue centres. Often what they will do is they might advertise a photo of a litter of puppies. They might put on a great bio for these animals, and in some cases they'll ask for a deposit. Now, I must stress here that one thing you should not do is, without seeing the puppy, without seeing the litter with the mother, you should not give any form of deposit over any form of website. And if you are giving a deposit, I would strongly recommend using a recommended method of paying, such as PayPal, or using your bank or credit card, so a debit card or a credit card, and not doing back transfer. That's to make sure that you can have some financial protection as well. But the other thing that I would be recommending at this point is you want that breeder to want you to meet the puppies, what you want them to meet. They should want you to meet the mother. They should be trying to get an idea of that you're a legitimate home for their animal, and making sure that you're interested and you want to meet them, and that's something that they should be wanting to encourage, and they should be ringing an alarm bell if they're very happy for you to avoid that. Breeders and rescue centres which are doing their absolute best for that puppy and for that young animal should want to do their due diligence. They should not be accommodating justifications such as you don't want to see the puppy or you don't want to see them with the mother. During the pandemic, there have been video meetups, and that is acceptable, and that's the safest way of doing it at the moment until we open back up. And as Tim rightly said in our discussion, at the moment you can meet someone up in their garden, and it is a legitimate business reason for going to that kennel and going to that cattery or whichever enterprise they're running or rescue centre that they're running. So it is a legitimate reason for you being there. Now, to extend that point, equally, when you're meeting the breeder up, when you're meeting the rescue centre up, because I will say on this one, some people will put a dog up for adoption and they will ask for a certain amount of money towards certain fees, and the same scam that they can use for paying for a pedigree dog. They can use, and some people will use, on rescue to pull on the heartstrings of some people by doing fake adoption scams as well. And that can happen, and especially on sites which I would not recommend using, such as Gumtree or other sites such as Gumtree, because these different websites, Pets for Homes as well, although better than Gumtree, still has its flaws in that respect, and this is something that you have to be aware of. That the websites aren't able to vet these groups. They might be another form of advertising, but they aren't necessarily able to vet the individual, and they definitely aren't able to vet the owner or the buyer. So the other thing is, as Tim rightly pointed out, this does also put you at a greater risk of being able to be confident that you are able to rehome your dog or rehouse your dog. And I would also raise at this point, the whole free to good home case does generally lead to your dog being used as a bait animal, or being used as in dog fighting or in breeding schemes. Just because they present well to you does not mean that they are going to be a legitimate or good home for your animal. Even if that rescue centre cannot take on your dog and you are really struggling, work with them so they can help you find a suitable home, or work with a breeder to help them find you a suitable home. You need to make sure that you are using all the channels available and making sure that it's the safest outcome for your pet if you have to give it up, and making sure that you're using the resources available to you to make sure that's the case. Now, in terms of from the pet theft point of view, main things to really clarify are areas such as where you're at greater risk. Now, as me and Tim were discussing, there was various points where there are misconceptions. There is not a necessary theme to the dogs that are being stolen or targeted, and it's not necessarily a type of person that they're targeting. Obviously, the quieter environment you're in, the more vulnerable you are, and I would certainly recommend using apps such as Polyguard, or if you haven't got the facilities to use applications such as Polyguard, please do take a rape alarm or rape whistle. I'll also say, to that degree, do make sure that someone is also aware of where you've gone and how long roughly your walk will be. Because if you have gone out, you need to make sure that people know to effectively go to give you a call if you haven't been into contact with them, or you're later than what you should be. There are also other settings to bear in mind with other devices that you have if something happens. There are fall sensors on your smartwatches which will detect if there's been an impact, and as a result that can launch an SOS feature. There are also applications on different phones. Samsung and iPhone users can use the emergency settings on their phones to effectively alert their emergency contacts and the police. So it triggers an SOS warning. They do check how to put these features onto your phone. I will also attach some links and information on how to do that. These are more for if you're isolated, and as well as if you're in a built-up area. Make as much noise as you can, startle the person who is trying to steal your dog. Don't obviously put yourself at risk, and I know as an animal owner and an animal lover that this is often against the nature and what you would want to do in that situation, and probably often against how you would react in that situation. But you have got to think about your safety and making yourself as loud as possible in that situation, so as many people can hear what's going on. And Tim's advice was also to make sure that all of your pet's information is as up to date as physically possible, whether that be recent photographs, information about where you think about where if your dog has any markings that might not be visible on photos, and make sure that obviously that your microchip details are up to date. Also, with your ID collar, do make sure that you don't put your dog's name on there, because the last thing you want is any tools that someone can use to effectively be able to move your dog on quicker. Then it moves on to the point of different methods that these thieves will use to get your dog away from you. There have been cases where people have used dog whistles to attract your dog over, squeaky toys, tennis balls, and make sure that if you are letting your dog off the lead, that the dog has a good recall, because there will be cases where thieves will try as many different strategies to get your dog away from you as possible. And if your dog has not got a good recall, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage of being able to get your dog back and get your dog away from these people. Now, some cases you'll also see what is classed as a distraction theft, and Tim was very good to provide this information in terms of what a distraction theft looks like. And this can happen with other types of thefts, but with pet theft, they might be asking you questions about your dog, and they might be asking you questions about where directions, and trying to break your concentration just long enough to be able to get your dog away from you. And obviously, if they get your dog away from you, that is something that they may not necessarily do there and then. They might be effectively trying to work out which way you're going to go, and then or they might even potentially lead you down somewhere to get put you in a vulnerable position where you have less chance of being able to effectively manage your situation and react well in that situation. So, other points is, do bear in mind that this might not always be a group of men who will do this. It doesn't say that those who are committing these offences are all male. It's dominated by men, sure, but that doesn't mean that they are against or above using women and children to aid in committing a crime. So do bear that in mind and do be aware of the situation. That's not to say be overly judge everyone, but just be conscious and be aware of what could happen. Make sure that your dog is always on the inside of the road, so it's not so inside of the footpath, sorry, not inside of the road. You want to make sure that the dog is as far away from someone just being able to pull up and pull your dog away from you, and you don't want to put yourself in that situation. Equally, do bear in mind that there will be situations where your dog may be in a more vulnerable position outside of a walk. So when you're laying your dog out late at night, make sure to be with your dog or have a secure garden at the very least, to be able to know that if someone is coming to your garden, you are aware of of when someone has come in, such as putting a bell on your gate, etc. Other things to bear in mind in terms of, just as a latter point with this video, and this is something that I certainly want to call on all vets to be doing, because this is one way we can safeguard our pets, is to make sure that vets are always scanning the microchip details, especially if it's a suspicious case, because there will be cases of where a dog has been taken to a vet by someone who may have acquired that dog because it's gone away, gone loose, or even if it's been stolen and then rehomed to someone, which can happen. This compulsory scanning, or TUX law, that is a current petition going through on the parliamentary websites, is to really make sure that vets are aware that although it's compulsory to microchip, that they should also be scanning, and that's what they're campaigning for, because this will safeguard your pets, and this will make sure that the pets are safeguarded as well. The other thing that they're advocating for is a rescue backup. So if there is a case of when someone doesn't want that dog, or is advocating for the dog to be put down, if that dog is healthy, that the rescue backup will be triggered, and that the rescue centre where that dog's from, or in cases of breeder, will be the point of contact to have that conversation as well. And that is only if the dog is healthy in that situation. Now, there is obviously only so much we can do as pet owners. We do need to see change, we do need to see reform. As I said in the article, we do need to make sure not that just that the maximum sentence is going up, but that effectively the average sentence is also increasing, because we need to make sure the people who are committing these crimes are effectively paying for the crime, paying for the mistake, or they need to recognise how much of a problem and how damaging this is for families and for the dogs and the cats in these situations, who are effectively ripped away from the homes that they know. And we need to do better. Simply, we need to protect them as much as we can, and we need to offer that safeguard for those animals, and we need to be that voice for the voiceless. And yeah, we need to do more. But hopefully some of these tips will help someone, and if it's even helps one person, then that is more than enough. But hopefully this will help, and have a good evening.